אילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כילות. ואילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כילות. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלך מלכי המלכים, מלך מלכי המלכים, מלך מלכי המלכים. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלכנו. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלכנו.
אילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כילות. ואילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כילות. מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלך מלכי המלכים, מלך מלכי המלכים, מלך מלכי המלכים. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך שמך מלכנו. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך
מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך.
Therefore, thanks to you, ever living sovereign, that you have restored my soul to me in mercy. How great is your trust. Boker Tov, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. It is nice to start this morning of Shabbos together. And for those who didn't hear it yesterday, we are doing Shabbat from home for the next couple of weeks, due to the spike that there is in Los Angeles County and in Orange County. And the reason I say Los Angeles County is because Gabi comes all the way from Los Angeles County, which is next door to Orange County, and so is Evan coming from Los Angeles County. So, due to the spike that we are experiencing, we are trying to do our part by staying home and doing services from home for a few weeks. As we start this morning, I invite you to try to find some moments of connection, some moments of awareness. We'll talk later in the context of our Torah portion, Parashat Vayigash, of moments of awareness, moments in which we do the hard work of finding transcendence. We now turn our studying to page 194, as we say, praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh kol basar, umafli la'asot. Page 196, a blessing for our souls. Amen. Neshama. נשמה שנתת בי, טהורה היא.
אלוהי, נשמה שנתת בי, טהורה היא. אתה בראת, אתה יצרת, אתה נפחת בי, ואתה משמע בקרבי, ואתה עתיד לתלוא ממני ולהחזירה לי לעתיד לבוא. כל הזמן שהנשמה בקרבי, מודה אני לפניך. כל הזמן שהנשמה בקרבי, מודה אני לפניך. אלוהי, נשמה טהורה
Source of our creation, source of our souls. Praise you, Adonai, whose hand is every living soul, the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, אשר בידו נפש כל חי ורוח כל בשר איש. We will now turn our Sidurim to page 198 for the blessings for the daily miracles. And as we think of our daily miracles, I invite you to bring them through your body, to try to find some awareness of what does it mean for you to lift up the fallen. And in our tradition, it usually points out directly to our lower back, as funny as it sounds. But maybe we can symbolically think about being lifted up from some low place that we need to rise right now. Let's think about the connection between our bodies and our spirits. When we think about freeing the captive, once again, Matira Surim is about being able to extend our bodies after a night of sleep. But it might be also about the ability to extend our enclosed spirits and release a little bit our souls. So as we navigate the words of our tradition, let's also try to find the words of our hearts, our tefillot shebalev, page 198, Birkot HaShachar.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim, who lift up the fallen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, mabi sharumin.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir shena me'enai udnuma me'afapai.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me in the image of God and has created all human beings equal.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani bat chorin.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ozeh Yisrael bigvura.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor. We traditionally do the blessing for the study of Torah after the Birkot HaShachar, the blessings for the daily miracles, but today we will use the blessing for the study of Torah later on as we study some Torah after the Amidah. So now we will turn our Sidurim to page 212 for the blessings for the Psukei de Simbra.
Baruch Shemot v'chaya haolam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemot, Baruch Oseh Bereshit, Baruch Omer ve'oseh, Baruch Gozer u'mekayem, Baruch merachem al haaretz, Baruch merachem al habriot, Baruch meshalem שכר טוב לרעב, בר חי לעד, וקיים לנצח, ברוך פודה ומציל, ברוך הוא, ברוך שמו.
page 214, מזמור שיר ליום השבת.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, אלי 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 מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, אלי 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 טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עזור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינון, עלי עזור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, אלי 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 זריקת המר יברח, כארז בלבנון יזכה, שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו, עוד ינובון בשיבה, שנים ברעננים יהיו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני, צורי ולא עוולת בו. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, אלי 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 אלי.
At the top of page 215, אשרי יושבי ביתך.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יעללוך הסלע. אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יעללוך
אביי, תרוממך אלוהי המלך, בברך שמך לעולם בעד.
בכל יום אברכך, והללה שמך לעולם בעד.
גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, בגדולתו אין חקר.
דור לדור ישבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו.
עד כבודותיך, ודברי נפלאותיך שיחה.
וזוז נורותיך יאמרו, גדולתך ספרנה.
זכר אותו בחייבהו, בצדקתך ילנו.
חנון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדל חסד.
אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מסע.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, בגבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, ומשולתך בכל דור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
הנה כל אליך שברו, ותתן להם את אוכלם לאיתו.
פותח את ידיך, ומשביע לכל חי רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסין בכל שעריו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראוהו באמת.
תלמידיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיע.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, את כל הרשעים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו, לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. תברך את שמך, אדוני אלוהינו ברוח כל בשר תפאר, ותתרומם זכרך מלכנו תמיד. Master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps. God awakens the sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute. And God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone do we acknowledge. We're on page 220.
אלופינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כיונות. אלופינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כיונות. אין לך ולברך את שמך מלך מלכי המלכים מלך מלכי המלכים מלך מלכי המלכים בילופינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כאיילות לופינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כאיילות.
For every mouth will acknowledge you, and every tongue pledge homage to you, and every knee bend in your presence. Every upright person shall bow before you, every heart will revere you, and every more thought will think to your name. Let all my bones exclaim, who is like you, Adonai? Bless Adonai, O my soul, and let my inner being praise your holy name. O God, in the power of your strength, great in the glory of your name, mighty forever, awesome in amazing deeds, the ruler who sits in the high and exalted throne. שוכן מרום בקדוש שמו, וכתוב ראינו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נבע תהילה, בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, ורינה את פעל שמך מלכנו בכל דור ודור, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נחל, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו באמותינו, שילוש בחלל בספרה, עוז וממשלה נצח גדולה וגבורה, תהילה ותפארת קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודאות, ואתה באדוני, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודאות, אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי שמרה, מלך חלקי העולמים, יתגדל ויתקדש המחלפה, בן דברה חילותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי בכל בית ישראל, בעגלה, בעגלה, ובזמן קריב, באמרו בהתהלל, בהתהלל, שבית הקודשה, להילה מנגודך בשילתה, קוש בחתה ולחמתה, תמידם בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. mercy you illuminate the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom you formed them all, filling the earth with your creatures. We praise Adonai our God for the excellent work of your hands, and for the lights you created, may they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praise are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer ha'meorot. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah. Focus our minds on your mitzvot. Unite our hearts in love and reverence for your name. Lead us in peace from the four corners of the earth. Lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, were wonders. You chose us truly. You drew us near to your great name. We may acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Chooses your people Israel in love.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. We continue together on page 234 with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו תותפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Adonai said to Moses as follows, Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמן.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת, אמת ביציבהו בחביב בן עולה בדיר ביתו ביפה, הדבר עשה עלינו לעולם בעת. אמת אלוהי עולם מלכנו, צור יעקב מגן אישנו, לדור בדור הוא קיים, ושמו קיים בכיסאו נחום, ומלכותו ואמונתו לאחת קיימת. God ever humbles the proud, raises the lowly, frees the imprisoned, redeems the afflicted, helps the oppressed, answering our people when we cry out. Praise to God Most High, blessed is God, and deserving of blessing. In great joy, Moshe, Miriam, and Israel responded with song to you, all of them proclaiming, who is like you, O God? Mi kamocha v'elim Adonai. We're on page 240.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה ולה, נורא תהילות עושה ולה, שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובטחנו ממך יהודה וישראל. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובטחנו ממך יהודה וישראל. קולנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. אלי 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 ברוך אתה אדוני כל ישראל.
We will now turn our Sidurim to page 242 for Tfilat Amidah. We invite you to follow the words of our tradition without forgetting your Tfilah Shebalev, the prayer of your heart. We invite you to think of the words that you need to say. We invite you to try to find focus, center, and to think of what's really important to you. Adonai, שפתי תפתח, ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומשיח ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומרעיד הגשם, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, זומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומותיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם, בשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב ביד נביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומכינו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך ברוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
זבחו מלכותך שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג, מקדשי שביעים, כולם יסבהו ותענגו מטובך, ישביע ורצית בו בקידשתו, עמדת ימים אותו קראת, סכר למעשה בראשית. We continue with the silent reading of תפילת עמידה. אלוהינו ולאלוהי אדוננו מלכנו. What's on here? שלום, תבואו ברכה. רצון אמרי בהגיון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי בגואלי. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. The bottom of page 260.
Shalom aleinu.
So today, can you hear me well? Yes, you can hear me well. Great. Let's make sure that I don't have any echo when I speak. Is it now better? Okay, fantastic. So what we are going to do, and next week we might do it slightly differently, and we do something that is closer to our Torah service. But today we will read a little bit of Torah, just to have the taste, and of course we will discuss some important issues in the Torah portion. And I would like to invite Mark Silverstein to open his Siddur on page 200. You have your Siddur in front of you, right? So you can go back to page 206, I think, or 4. Let me see. I'll tell you in a second. To page 204. And if you could say the blessing for the study of Torah for all of us. Zach will need
I broke up here.
There you go.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hails us with the mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah.
And keep going. O Adonai, our God, that the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths.
O Adonai, our God, let the words of the Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel, may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamlamed Torah le'amu Yisrael.
Amen. Okay, thank you. So, Parashat Vayigash. So, we were discussing yesterday about the meaning of the word Vayigash. We spoke about negishut. We spoke about accessibility. I want to explore today a few other ideas that appear in this Torah portion. The first one, if you look in chapter 44, verse 24, Ve'i ki aleinu el avdecha abi. When Judah is speaking with Joseph, he says several times, our father, your servant. And Joseph, who hasn't revealed himself yet, doesn't say a word. We read in Pirkei the Rabbi Eleazar, 10 times Joseph heard his brothers refer to his father as your servant. And he did not protest. Because of this, his life was shortened by 10 years. Joseph lived 110 years. What I was thinking about was Joseph's conflict, right? He didn't want to reveal himself. He was playing a character in front of his siblings. And therefore, he allowed them to refer to their father as their servant. And he said nothing. And I was thinking about how often we hear speech that we shouldn't hear. How often we hear people that are close to us or not so close to us, fellows, I don't know, co-workers, co-board members, friends, family, partners, referring to others in a way we believe shouldn't be. And we say nothing. How often people come to me and speak about others, and I try to focus on the center of what they are trying to tell me, and I don't stop them when I hear something that I feel is out of place. because I'm just trying to get to the core of what they are trying to tell me and not to judge them or trying to focus in the core. So Torah teaches us that that's unacceptable. Torah teaches us that you cannot, even when you are playing a character, you cannot refrain from rebuking or complaining about something that sounds inappropriate. So that's the first thought that I wanted to share. Now, once Joseph reveals himself, now there is a new task that his siblings need to fulfill, and it's the task of letting their father know that Joseph is alive. And is that an easy task? Apparently not so much. Not so much. Jacob has believed for 22 years that Joseph is dead. And now he's old. And they need to break with this news. And they are afraid for his heart. They're afraid for his well-being. And probably also they're a little bit afraid for themselves. Even though they have made a plan with Joseph about how to refer to the story. But in the context of how they announce it to Jacob, there is a very important Jewish law. Have you heard about the Agalas Trufa? Now you will hear about it. So I invite you to open up, if you are following a Chumash, go to chapter 45, verse 27. 45, verse 27. וידברו אליו את כל דברי יוסף אשר דיבר אליהם, ויראה את העגלות אשר שלח יוסף. לשאת איתו ותחיה רוח יעקב אביהם. So they told Jacob all the words of Joseph, and when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob, their father, was revived. Says Rashi, Joseph gave his brothers a sign to relay to their father that at the time that Joseph had parted from Jacob, they had been studying the laws of Eglah, Arufah, the beheaded heifer that we study about in Deuteronomy chapter 21. Thus, although it was Pharaoh who had sent the wagons, the verse says, when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent for the wagons, Agalot, Eglah, what is an egel? What? An egel?
Calf.
A calf. An egel is a calf. And what's an agala? A cart. They sound very similar. And you don't write them the same, but they sound very similar. Once again, the tradition is playing with sounds. And remember, the reason our tradition works with sounds is because the tradition was oral and not written. Now, of which the verse speaks is a reference to the Eglah Arufah. Now, what's this Eglah Arufah? And before we say that, the Talmud from Jerusalem, we usually read the Babylonian one, but sometimes we get very interesting information and input from the Yerushalmi Talmud. When Jacob sent Joseph to his brothers, you remember just a few Torah portions ago, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers. Now, the Talmud will try to explain why the law of Eglah Arufah is such an important one in this context. He accompanied him on the way. As Joseph was leaving, Jacob walked with him for a while. Said Joseph, "Father, turn back so that I should not be punished for traveling you." Said Jacob to him, "My son, in this very matter, my descendants will blunder when they do not arrange a proper escort for a traveler and he's killed, and they will have to bring an eglah arufah and proclaim, 'Our hand did not spill this blood.'" Now, the principle, says the Lubavitcher rabbi, the principle behind the law of eglah arufah is that a person is responsible also for what occurs outside of his domain, outside of the areas where he is fully in control. When a murdered traveler is found out in the field, the elders of the nearest city must go out there and bring the eglah arufah, the beheaded calf, to atone for the crime. Although it occurred outside of their jurisdiction, for it was nevertheless their responsibility to send the traveler off with adequate provision and protection. Now, this is the distinction between being guilty and responsible. Being guilty and responsible. Aaron Joshua Heschel once said that in a free society, we are not all guilty, but still we are all responsible. And so often we say, well, this is so far away from me. It has nothing to do with me. And what Torah says is, well, it has something to do with you. You might not be guilty of that murder, but you have some responsibility for fellow human beings, wherever they are, particularly if they are next to your city. So when you say, these are the boundaries of my city, these are the boundaries of my community. This is the gate of temple of Beth Tikvah. And from here to the outside, well, it's not my business. Well, it is your business. This is the door of my house. Here is my mezuzah. I care for what is inside. True, you should care. You are very, very, very much responsible for anything that happens in your household, in your home. But you also need to care about your street. And you better think about your neighborhood. And in the context of the Jewish community, and referring to many of the conversations that we have with our board of directors, we don't just care about Temple Beth Tikvah, we care about the Jewish community. We care about the Jewish community in Orange County. We care about the Jewish community in the United States. We care about the state of Israel. And so on. And we, of course, care about human beings wherever they are. And therefore, you will see that anytime that there is a disaster in the world, one of the first things to arrive is always from the state of Israel. There's a value, there's a sense of responsibility for the other that is born in this understanding that we are all responsible. Now, let's get back to our story, Joseph and Jacob. So, Joseph sent a galot, and Jacob understands Eglah Arufah. Agalah, Egel, and he says, this is Joseph. And now he believes them. And what we learn is that in that day, in that moment, Jacob's spirit was revived. Like life came back to him. So this was the second path. So the first idea was, even when you don't say the wrong words, when you hear them and you allow them to be sounded in front of you, you bear responsibility. The second story is, even when you are not guilty, you must be aware and exercise responsibility and try to care for everyone in your surroundings. A side comment for those that are in the Isha class, this is the first time that we will hear twice about her in the Torah, about Serach bat Asher. Serach, the daughter of Asher, which is one of the most enigmatic characters that we have in the entire Torah. Who knows why? Well, apparently she lived forever. She never died. And that's one thing. And apparently she's the one who shares with Jacob the news of the appearance of Joseph, and says the tradition that later on, when we are doing one of the first censuses, one of the first countings, when we are in the desert, she's there. So if you make the math, it's a long life. We will be talking about her in our class Isha, and more specifics about her existence, which is very interesting. Okay, and the last comment. Oh, I closed my Chumash. I'll find it. Something that has to do with acknowledging God's presence. It says in 46:4, I will go down with you into Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again. And says the Talmud in Megillah, come and see how beloved are Israel in the sight of God. In every place to which they were exiled, the divine presence went with them. They were exiled to Egypt, and the divine presence was with them. They were exiled to Babylon, and the divine presence was with them. And when they will be redeemed in the future, the divine presence will be with them. That's the Talmud in Megillah 29a. Now, how many people went down to Egypt with the family of Jacob? Who said 70? You all said 70, right? You knew. So, interesting thing about the 17 and what we just said, all the souls of the house of Jacob who came into Egypt were 70. We're on 46:27. Now, says the Talmud in Baba Batra, but if you count them, you find only 69. The 70th is Yocheved, the daughter of Levi, who was born between the boundary walls as they enter Egypt. But they go on with this idea, and they say, in Pirkei the Rabbi Eliezer, when they reached the border of Egypt, they added up to 66. Together with Joseph and his two sons, they were one less than 70. So they came to Egypt, there were 66. Joseph, 67. Ephraim ben Menashe, 69. They were one less than 70. What did God do? He entered into the count with them in fulfillment of what it is written, I will go down with you into Egypt, which is the previous verse that we just read. And I think that the interesting idea behind this concept is about our ability to allow God to be a part of our counting, to count in God's presence. Not in God's presence as the presence of a superhero character that comes in our help, but maybe in God's presence as our internal search for awareness, for deep connection in moments of transition. In order to connect that dot, one more thing, Joseph harnessed his chariot and went up to meet Israel, his father. And he fell on his neck and wept on his neck. Joseph saw Jacob after 22 years and runs toward him, and he falls on his neck and cries. But Jacob, says Rashi, did not embrace Joseph and did not kiss him. Our sages tell us that he was reading the Shema. Now, it's a bit, I think it's quite emblematic to think about Joseph running toward Jacob and Jacob taking a moment and saying, I want to do something else with this moment. I want to connect this moment that I have been waiting for 22 years. I want to connect this moment to eternity. I want this moment to live forever. And once again, we see how actually Jacob brings God's presence into the equation. So the question is how, or the idea is how we are present in places in which we are not. We are responsible when we are not guilty, and how we allow God's presence to be a stage of awareness in our lives as we embrace moments of transition, and also as we experience very deep things, moments of deep joy and deep connection. With that said, let's get the taste of Parashat by Gash, Gabi, and Gabriel.
ויגש אליו יהודה ויאמר בי אדוני ידבר נא עבדך דבר באוזני אדוני וייחר אפך בעבדך כי חמוך כפרעה אדוני שאל את עבדיו לאמור היש לכם אב או אח ויום ונאמר אל אדוני יש לנו אב זקן וילד זקונים קטן ואחיו מת ויוותר הוא לבדו לאמו ואביו אהבו ותאמר אל עבדיך הורידוהו אלי ואשימה עיני עליו ונאמר אל אדוני לא יוכל הנער לעזוב את אביו ועזב את אביו ומת ותאמר אל עבדיך אם לא ירד אחיכם הקטן איתכם לא תוסיפון לראות פניי ויהי כי עלינו אל עבדך אבי ונגד לא את דברי אדוני ויאמר אבינו שובו שברו לנו מעט אוכל. ונאמר לא נוכל לרדת. אם יש אחינו הקטון איתנו וירדנו, כי לא נוכל לראות פני האיש, וכינו הקטון איננו איתנו. ויאמר עבדך אבי אלינו, אתם ידעתם כי שניים ילדה לי אשתי.
Their own original sound. For those that have a Siddur, we're on page 374. I have given you good instruction. Do not abandon my Torah. Even if you don't have the ability to do Aliyahs and you are not reading directly from the scroll, let's don't abandon Torah. כי לקח טוב נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזבו. את העיבים למחזיקים בה, page 586. We now take a moment to acknowledge mourners among our community. We once again remember the passing of Jack Mendel, who passed away last Thursday, and we don't say Kaddish for him yet. We don't say Kaddish before the funeral. His funeral will be next week. We will be announcing when that will happen. As soon as it is confirmed, it will be apparently on Wednesday morning. So as soon as it is completely confirmed, we will be sending the information. And now we invite you to share the names of your beloved ones for those that are during the first 7 days of morning Shiva, and so for those during the cycle of the first 30 days of morning Shloshim, and so for those during the first year of mourning, and also those that have or are remembering the anniversary of someone's passing this week. We invite you to share the names of your beloved people, the comments section on Facebook, on YouTube, of course, here in Zoom, as we recite the words of Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמה דברה חילותה, בהמליך מלכותה, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, באמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר, ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשם בריחו, אלא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירם בעלמה, באמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, בחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, באמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, ועושה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, באמרו אמן. May the memories of your dear ones, of your beloved people be always a blessing in your life. יהיה זכרם ברוך. Do we have announcements? Well, this is not an announcement, but this is the last Shabbat of the Gregorian year, of the Gregorian calendar year. And yesterday we were talking about this idea that many people pray for 2020 just to go away. It was a difficult year for many, and so just let's separate from 2020. And I want to challenge that a little bit in our conception. I want to say that true, we dealt with some very unusual circumstances and very challenging circumstances. But on the other hand, we experience things that I think are quite remarkable. Quite remarkable. I think, true, we saw in many aspects lack of responsibility. And so we pray for 2021 to inspire us to bring more responsibility, more social awareness, more connection, more solidarity. But on the other hand, we saw, I don't want to say unprecedented solidarity, but the levels of solidarity in our society, I think, were very high as well. And the experience of dealing with something that is inconceivable, and in less than a year to have a vaccination for it and to have so many treatments that are available, says a lot about our scientific advancements. And so I think we need to be grateful for that. There are many things that are blessings. Of course, we acknowledge and recognize those that are not necessarily blessings, and there are different, very, very difficult circumstances. But as we always say, our circumstances are not curses. The curse is when we don't deal with our circumstances. Our circumstances are challenges. And our ability to transform those circumstances on blessings or curses is ours. It's ours, even when the circumstances are very, very difficult. So we pray for that ability to grow. We pray for better circumstances as well. We hope for better circumstances. But for many of the circumstances in our lives, we have no say. We have very little control. We do have control, and we can pray for that, over our ability to deal with our circumstances with grace, with strength, with courage. And we pray for those things. So I'm about to turn your Siddur to page 632. Can you shift with me the Siddur? Can you bring me that one? We started to introduce the words of Epiud. Zach, do you have Ein Adir? If you don't, we will do Adon Olam. But if you do, we'll do Mipiel. Yes, Zach, do you have that one? It looks like you do. So let's use that. And for those that have a Siddur, we are on page 632. En Adir Kadonai, En Baruch Keben Amraan, En Golak Katorah, Ben Darshena Israel, Mipiel, Mipiel, Yevorach Kol Israel, Mipiel, Mipiel, Yevorach Kol Israel, En Adir Kadonai, En Batik Keben Amraan, En Zakak Katorah, En Chachamei Israel, Mipiel, Mipiel, Yevorach Kol Israel, Mipiel, Mipiel, Yevorach Kol Israel, En Tarok Adonai, ואין יחיד כבן עמרם, אין כבירה כתורה, ואין למדניה כישראל, מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל, מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל, אין בודק אדוני, ואין צדיק כבן אברהם, אין קדושה כתורה, אין תומכיה כישראל, מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל ישראל, מפיהם, מפיהם, יבורך כל לעמו ישראל ייתן את השלום. We pray for peace, we pray for wholeness, we pray for wisdom and for the ability to convert difficult situations, very difficult circumstances in blessings. ונעוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. שבת שלום everyone. יש מלא שבת ustedes.